This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Shahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellowwallpod podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 528 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we'll talk about Borussia Dortmund beating Wolfsburg 2-1 on the road before they host Friday night's game against Mainz, and of course also Tuesday's home leg against Atalanta in the Champions League playoff round for the round of 16. For all that and more, I am joined by Lars Pollmann. Hello Lars, how are you doing?
Hello Stefan, I'm doing well, how are you?
Well, I'm still recovering from not wearing the correct socks to play football on Saturday, and still have a couple of wounds on my heels because I was basically wearing very short socks. Very stupid, don't do that. But I was playing football on Saturday morning, so I actually did not see most of the Dortmund win against Wolfsburg because afterwards we went to brunch as well, and so I had the game sort of on my phone. Sporadically, I did rewatch the last 10-15 minutes or so. But from what I've heard, Lars, is that Dortmund played reasonably well in the first half. We even had a headed goal from Julian Brandt off a corner kick, but then as Wolfsburg eventually equalized, Dortmund did not cover themselves in glory in the second half, and I forgot this guy's name. I think it was Amura. If he hadn't fluffed a billion chances, Dortmund probably would have not walked home with 3 points, but they did put a little bit pressure on Bayern over the over the night, but as we all know, Bayern did dismantle Hoffenheim 5-1. So it's still 6 points at the top of the table, but nevertheless, Dortmund did win. Lars, what are your thoughts on this game and this win?
I would go so far as saying it was basically the perfect first half on the road. I mean, not a huge amount of chances for Dortmund, but just total control, which in away games I think is pretty hard to do sometimes. Obviously, Wolfsburg not necessarily in the greatest run of form, but have improved a little bit under their head coach, who took over from the Dutch guy whose name eludes me in the moment. And then Dortmund completely lost control even before the equalizing goal, for which I think Schlotterbeck is largely to blame, not only because he gave away the free kick with a handball. Okay, that can happen, even though it was very annoying for him to get himself suspended for the game against Mainz. But then he also was shoved quite easily away by who even scored for Wolfsburg? I don't remember. But like Schlotterbeck, if you are the kind of person who shows us their bicep after scoring, you shouldn't be shoved away when a free kick is swung into the area. And then, I mean, honestly, Wolfsburg were much closer to a second goal than Dortmund for parts of the second half, at least. I think they hit the woodwork twice, even though I wouldn't necessarily say those were huge scoring opportunities, as opposed to some of the chances Amura wasted, as you alluded to earlier. I think he had quite a few runs towards Kobel where, with more composure, he probably would have put them away. And as it so happens, Dortmund did use their one really good chance in the second half. Very well done by Mecha. I don't remember who gave the assist, but then
It was Silva.
Silva, yeah, of course. I'm always hesitant to call it a real assist because I don't necessarily think it was meant to go to Guirassy, but a week on from his brace and penalty drama game, he slotted away coolly, calmly, and gave Dortmund at least 2 undeserved points, I would say. I think sometimes it's better to be lucky than good, but also that good teams sometimes find ways to be lucky. So I don't know if I want to be too critical of Dortmund's performance. It's the kind of game that happens a few times a season where nobody really wonders about how you got the 3 points in, a week or so, because the fixtures are coming thick and fast, but definitely not the kind of performance you hang your hat on necessarily. But then again, I don't know if those are, required at this point of the season.
Well, typically this is the kind of game that you've forgotten about a week later, and I think you not really knowing who gave the assist or that Kulirakis scored for Wolfsburg.
Easy for you to
may
say.
be forgiven. Yeah. No, I'm just saying that kind of almost proves it. Obviously, I can't forget much about this game because there wasn't much I saw to begin with, honestly. But yeah, I think you're right. What we can see, I think, in this stretch of the game, or of the season rather, is that Dortmund are tiring a little bit. And you just said fixtures are coming thick and fast. Dortmund now play on Friday against Mainz, then Tuesday Atalanta. The big question I have is if Dortmund want to be, or can be, let's say not want, because they obviously also want a deep Champions League run, but just on paper, I think what we saw last season after the Barcelona game and the streak that Dortmund went on to still qualify for the Champions League, I think the biggest benefactor, and Nico Kovac is on the record of saying it himself, is that Dortmund no longer had the so-called Doppelbelastung, meaning not having to play twice a week is a real blessing for this team. I think we can really see it right now that especially with injuries mounting up and suspensions and whatnot. I mean, Emre Can is now again, I think, out until the end of February is what I read. We all know that Filippo Mane, after playing well or okay or whatever, he is out till, I don't know, 46 weeks is what Kovac said, and we all know as followers of Borussia Dortmund that you have this always to take it with a grain of salt, because 46 weeks can sometimes easily become 8. But I think I looked on Transfermarkt what 6 weeks would be, and the home match against HSV might be the earliest that Mane could be available. Well, we'll obviously see. Still a long time until then, and of course, it is not ideal that you have the opposing striker run freely toward your goalkeeper like twice in one game. I feel like this happens quite a lot, and Kovac talked about this at one news conference, forget when exactly, but he basically said that he's gambling a little bit on that the striker, if he has to make such a long run, is too exhausted to have the focus to cleanly finish. And honestly, so far this season, Dortmund have had a lot of let-offs in these situations. However, not every time. So yeah, especially against top teams, I do worry that this sort of approach is going to bite Dortmund in the back. And of course, it is very annoying that the way Dortmund lose possession in these very risky situations is something that they cannot avoid over 2-3 games, but something that reoccurs all the time. So that's something annoying, but I think the positive or most positive thing from this game is, of course, Guirassy really being efficient in that crucial moment. I mean, I don't know if he got lucky that Grabara was already moving in the other direction when he aimed it for the short corner, and Grabara was on his way to the far corner. But from that distance and that kind of shot as a goalkeeper, you probably just have to speculate. And yeah, he got it wrong. Guirassy got lucky, but I think when we talk about how many points Dortmund are missing because of Guirassy's drought, these are certainly 2 points we have because Guirassy did have a good finish. So to me, that is a very good and positive note. Schlotterbeck being suspended maybe could be something you were hoping for, because Mainz are obviously not as good as Leipzig or Bayern in the following matches. So if you were planning it, maybe that's how you would plan it. Obviously, you want to avoid the suspension altogether, but it's also not something that's necessarily that realistic. So to get it out of the way, and the Mainz game, I think, is a game where Dortmund should still win without him, but we'll see. If there's one player that will not forget this game, that is, of course, what's his first name? Luca Reggiani, number 49. So that already tells you that he is one of those youth players coming up. Obviously, he was out there on the field in like 30 seconds of, I don't want to call it garbage time because the game was still on the line. But yeah, the 18-year-old made his debut, and was a very emotional thing for him. Lars, is this something that we can see more often now, especially as Dortmund are thinning out? I think Sebastian Kehl alluded to that, it being some part of Dortmund's overall strategy to, not make a move on the transfer market to have these kind of guys get more minutes.
I mean, they might not have another choice to make, obviously, in defense, especially given the injuries you've already mentioned. Like, I would, for that reason alone, say that Schlotterbeck missing against Mainz is actually far worse than missing one of those other two games, because there are no options to replace him. Basically, they will start Bensebaini, Anton, and Süle, and then if anything happens, Reggiani will have to play because they don't have another centre half, or they'll put Riasson in the back line, which I'm not necessarily hoping for. So between Reggiani in defense, I think he obviously has the shortest path to the playing field, but also Matisse Albert and Samuel Inacio in, I guess we would say, probably offensive midfield. I think Albert is probably best served as a left winger, which is a position Dortmund don't currently employ. Inacio can kind of play, I'd say, more centrally than Albert. All those guys have opportunities in front of them, much like Musakawa had before he got injured while on duty with Dortmund's youth team in the what was it, the International Premier League Cup or something like that. Yeah, they will all have opportunities if the current injury problems for the first time this season, there are a few to mention, keep going. And if there's still going to be rotation, obviously, if the Champions League is over after the next 2 or 4 games, I don't think many of us are expecting, them to beat either Bayern or Arsenal in the round of 16. Then maybe, as you said, the Doppelbelastung will go away and there will not be much need for rotation. But until then, I think there's going to be an opportunity here and there for these guys. I actually watched Reggiani on Sunday because he had a small turnaround from the Wolfsburg away game. The under-19s played on Sunday at 11 against Holstein Kiel in Dortmund. I went to watch the game. I haven't actually seen Reggiani too often because he missed a lot of time in the first half of the season, or maybe didn't miss, but wasn't available for the under-19s, for example, because of international duty with Italy and whatever. What strikes me with him is he doesn't look huge, which typically when you see center halves from up close, you realize that they are very large athletes, and he doesn't look particularly big. Obviously, an 18-year-old has time to grow and all that, but I like the way he communicates. He speaks decent German. And he's obviously one of the leaders of the team. He was the captain in the UEFA Youth League. In the Bundesliga, it's usually Luke Fahrenhorst. I don't exactly know why they are splitting it up, but that's the way it is. And to be fair, Dortmund won against Kiel on Sunday after pretty much a terrible game with the last kick of the game. So for Reggiani, an eventful weekend, let's say.
Yeah, so I don't know if you've listened to the news conference against for the match against Mainz. I personally have not. Are there any big personal updates that we need to discuss ahead of Friday's game?
I mean, we can just do a the whistle stop tour. Emre Can might be coming back sooner than expected because he's a madman and he wants to play. So Kovac talked about both the Leipzig and Bayern games as possibilities, depending on how his body reacts. So it seems pretty reasonable to expect him to be at least available against Bayern, which is obviously an important bit. Sabitzer might be back on Friday. He's back in parts of team training at least. Adeyemi will be back after missing with a knock to his ankle, if I remember correctly. Jan Couto did some individual work, I think, because he was sick. He was sent away actually from Wolfsburg, but he presumably is going to be available on Friday, at least for the bench. And everyone else is long-term, like Mane. I don't know if I'm missing someone.
No, you discussed Adeyemi, I think.
He's back. Yeah.
Was missing against Wolfsburg, so yeah. Interesting. I mean, I wonder if we'll come to that we'll see Riasson having to slot in as a left center back or something like that, or right center back, depending on which of Dortmund's back three is going down. And then we'll have, I don't know if Couto can make it, maybe Maxi Bayer is a right wing back again, which, to me is not the worst thing, honestly. But yeah, I really would hope we don't get the Riasson meme, because some users on X definitely have made the joke that basically when Dortmund praise their own depth, it's always Riasson mentioned that he can play on this position or that position, be it left back or center back or, I don't know, midfield, whatever. It's getting to like almost a Kevin Grosskreutz meme, though. Kevin Grosskreutz did obviously play in more positions for Borussia Dortmund than Riasson so far has. I think Kevin Grosskreutz probably the record holder, especially since he also did play goalkeeper in that regard. But we're getting very close to that territory in terms of the meme. But I would hope to not see Riasson in my backline, especially not if it's a back three. If it's a back four, which I don't know if Kovac would go to that, but if you only have two available center backs, at that point it might be time to switch to 4-2-3-1. I don't know if Dortmund, talk a lot about how comfortable or uncomfortable they feel in the back four, but I still expect a team of Dortmund's caliber to switch to a different system if need be, before you have Riasson play full center back. But,
I mean,
at some point it's just semantics anyway.
The thing with Riasson is that he actually played quite a bit of center half when he was still at Union Berlin. I mean, I don't see necessarily what would be so bad about him being the right-sided center back in the back three. He has extensive experience in that. I just don't really like him in that position, because I actually tend to think, despite, his sometimes questionable technical ability and all that, he's more valuable to them going forward than defending, because I think he does a lot of things with effort defensively, but don't know if he has the greatest instincts. And obviously he also sometimes gets a bit over emotional and gives away too many free kicks and all that. So Nico Kovac has talked about, going back to a back four if, personnel would dictate that. And I'm with you. I think in a pinch, they'd be able to do that. I think it's not their preferred, formation from the start. But I mean, at the end of the day, as you mentioned, during games, they often align in what basically is a back four anyway, when one of the center halves moves up, for example. So you would assume they can get the job done, even if they have to revert to that. But I don't know if it's something that they prefer over Riasson or even Reggiani playing, center half. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Maybe not.
Maybe. I don't know.
I mean, given that one of the three is Niklas Süle, it seems fairly likely that we are going to find out before Emre Can is back. But, sometimes miracles do happen. Yeah,
I mean, Niklas Süle the thing is, similar with Kani Chukwuemeka, I'm not entirely sure if he can do a full 90-minute stint. But we'll see. We'll also see what Mainz will do. Honestly, they are now coached by Urs Fischer. They are 14th in the Bundesliga, but things are all very tight at the bottom of the league. So I would still classify them as relegation threatened. So this is, I guess, the approach they will take. If it's an Urs Fischer team, you can expect a back 6, back 7 or something like that, and then counterattacks. So that is sort of what I expect. They did manage to beat Leipzig recently in a 2-1, I guess, upset victory. They are on a 3-game win streak because they also did dismantle Wolfsburg 3-1 and most recently a 2-0 win against Augsburg. So yeah, there's that. Having only conceded 2 goals in 3 games is definitely a good thing overall. They are usually not a team that gets shellacked often this season, although they did lose 4-0 to Hamburg, but under Urs Fischer, certainly they have improved that a little bit and gotten, I would assume, more defensive. So Lars, what other than an opponent that will try to make this game as boring, disruptive as possible can we expect, and what should we expect from the Black and Yellows, considering, like I previously said, that they are probably a little bit tired and not running on all cylinders right now?
I mean, that does not even come into it, in my opinion, because there was no midweek fixture this week, so they had the same amount of rest as Mainz, who are also playing in Europe this season, so it's not like they have, 20 fewer games or so than Dortmund this season. So tiredness will not be a factor, in my opinion. I think you already mentioned the most important part about Mainz, which is that they've completely turned their fortunes around since getting Urs Fischer. His first game, they had Bayern on the brink of a home defeat. I think Harry Kane scored the equalizing penalty in the 85th or so minute. So, and since then, Mainz have basically gone from what looked like a fairly surefire relegation candidate to a team that is probably tipped by most to finish the season fairly comfortably outside of the relegation zone. I actually don't know if they are as defensive-minded as you alluded to, because I think I read somewhere today that they only really went with the park the bus 5-4-1 sort of strategy at Bayern, and since then have been a bit more attacking minded. They signed, for example, Silas from Stuttgart in the winter transfer window. They also signed Geraldo Becker. So 2 of the faster attacking players in the Bundesliga over recent years. So it definitely feels like, the sort of focus on counter-attacking, as you alluded to, might still be there with Urs Fischer. There was also the statistic that for at least one day last weekend, Nadim Amiri was only bettered by Kylian Mbappe in scoring penalties this season in big European leagues. I think now Kane has overtaken him with 2 penalties for Bayern. But I think Amiri has scored 7 of 7 or maybe 8 of 8 in the Bundesliga this season. So definitely need to be aware of that, not giving away anything cheap, because he can also whip a very good free kick in. I mean, he's a full Germany international while playing for Mainz 05, which doesn't usually happen. So he's definitely sort of the danger man, I suppose. But it's still, at the end of the day, it's a home game against a team that's currently 14th in the league. So something that the Dortmund of yesteryear had quite a few issues, but something also that seems to somewhat have been eradicated since Niko Kovac took over now more than a year ago. I mean, when's the last time that we really sat somewhere after a home game against this kind of opponent where they drop points in the Bundesliga? I don't particularly remember. I mean, obviously they were close to dropping points against Heidenheim, for example, but they didn't. They came away with the 3 points quite luckily against St. Pauli. So for better or worse, they've kind of taken care of these sort of opponents, but I think Mainz is going to be a stiffer test than 14th in the Bundesliga usually would indicate.
Yeah, I mean, I would confidently say that at least in the Bundesliga, I mean, we have the one game against Bodo Glimt. I think that sticks out, but other than that,
because of that, I said Bundesliga because that's where my mind went as well. But in the Bundesliga, I can't remember one.
No, they've dropped points at home to Leipzig and to Stuttgart, and that is fair enough, I guess. In both those games, they were worse, and other than that, they have won every single league game this season at home. So, yeah. Here's hoping that this streak will continue at least 2 more games. But knowing that Augsburg is after the Bayern game at home and then the Hamburg game, I'm hoping for a much longer streak than that. So, yeah, fingers crossed. But yeah, we'll have to take it one game at a time. There are still tickets available for Tuesday's game against Atalanta. Last, it's the Champions League game. At least in my book, that should be a sellout, but maybe the demand is not as high as I would guess. Still a bit time, and I assume it still will be a sellout by the time this game kicks off. But I don't know how much of this game we will preview now, since we've already talked about it in the last episode. But 1 week later, are there any new wrinkles that you feel like might make a difference one way or another for Dortmund? I feel like maybe the fact that Schlotterbeck is getting a bit longer rest might actually help him to be in a somewhat better form in the Champions League in the games going forward, because I do believe that Schlotterbeck, first of all, he has a lot of things to ponder about his future, and maybe this will help in one way or another. And second of all, I thought that his form is not the best, especially defensively right now. We also saw how much Waldemar Anton means to this Dortmund team if he's out there or not in form because of flu. So that is maybe my 2 cents. Do you have anything else to say about the Champions League game on Tuesday, knowing that there's a whole ass game in between?
I mean, the only thing that I'm wondering is whether how much we talked about Atalanta's current form outside of like their Serie A position, because I think maybe during our last recording, or maybe just after, we did record on Thursday, I think, right?
Yeah.
So I think like an hour after that, the game against Juventus in the Coppa Italia started, and then they won 3-0 against Juventus, who haven't really lost much against since they've signed Luciano Spalletti as head coach. So maybe that's a sign of something to take serious. I think one thing that I hadn't really thought about much until I looked it up is that Atalanta are facing Dortmund at maybe an inopportune time. They are playing away to Lazio on Saturday, so a day fewer rest than Dortmund. Lazio and Atalanta are neighbors in the table, as we say in German, in Serie A. And then between the 2 games against Dortmund, Atalanta are facing Napoli, which is obviously still somewhat part of the title race in Serie A, so a very strong opponent. And at this point in time, Atalanta are outside of European spots in Serie A. They've gotten used to playing in Europe over the last few years, so I'm assuming possibly, their league campaign maybe takes a bit of precedence over a Champions League campaign, which presumably would be over in the next round anyway. I mean, obviously they are not going to throw away this game, but maybe, subconsciously or whatever, Dortmund is not necessarily at the forefront of their minds. I don't know. I'm also surprised that the game hasn't sold out so far. I guess it's just Atalanta aren't a huge draw. I think most fans probably can't tell you a single player playing for Atalanta at this point. I would include quite a few colleagues and journalists in that, because, I mean, who watches Atalanta and who really watches Serie A these days? outside of me because I'm an Inter fan. And it's Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's currently wet and quite cold and miserable in Dortmund, so maybe people don't want to spend, I don't know what a Champions League ticket costs these days, but I'm actually looking forward to the away leg to Atalanta because it's the early kickoff on the Wednesday next week and or the week after, I should say. And I love the Champions League early kickoff because the game doesn't go to 11 p.m. German time, which I hate.
Yeah, fair enough, Lars. I don't care one way or another because I live in a different time zone. So I think the later kickoff actually suits me a little better. But yeah, there's that. I am also one of those people that don't really know many players of Atalanta. I know De Ketelaere, and that's pretty much it. Zappacosta, someone I've heard before, but if I look through their squad,
Scamacca, please.
Yeah. Scamacca,
there's also
yeah,
a former
fine.
Schalke player, Sead Kolasinac, for example. I think
I've heard of him. Is Mitchell Bakker? I mean, he's in the squad, but he's probably not playing. He played for Leverkusen in the past.
Yeah, it's him. Yeah,
but yeah, we should probably mention that Charlie Özcan has been nominated and is now eligible to play in this game. And someone else from the younger
Inacio.
players whose name is Inacio. There you go. So yeah. I guess that's one note we should make since Özcan was, among others, ready to come on against Wolfsburg just as Dortmund did score. So the substitutions, which felt a little bit more defensive, I thought, were going to happen one way or another. Oh, one question actually, was there any update on Sabitzer? I can't even remember if he was already available against Wolfsburg or not.
He wasn't, but I mentioned him earlier. He is back. He's tight integrated in training, so he does some of the stuff on the pitch with the team, but not fully integrated. But I'm kind of assuming he's going to be available on the bench just because there's not too many options, and maybe he can give them 10 minutes off the bench.
Yeah. I hope our listeners listen a little more closely to what you're saying than I am. Apologies. But yeah, that is pretty much it for this week, Lars, unless you want to give out a prediction when you think Schlotterbeck will make his decision. But as of right now, I'm relatively relaxed. I've just planned to be outraged or nervous or whenever when the time comes, really, and then take it from there.
I think the newest reporting that came out yesterday or today, we are recording on Wednesday, is that the two sides have basically agreed to his announcing a decision around the March international break. I think I'm on record on this show saying that I get the feeling he's not going to extend, but that's maybe shifting a little bit because there's quite a bit of smoke around reporting that he's going to get one of those dreaded release clauses. So, and also I think realistically, I think he probably would prefer going to Bayern if he were not to extend at Dortmund, and with Bayern seemingly ready to announce their contract extension with Dayo Upamecano, I don't really know that he wants to go into a situation where he has to fight with Upamecano and Tah for playing time at centre half. So presumably that betters Dortmund's chances. Obviously, there are a few other options abroad, but Schlotterbeck has said in the past that he's not one of those guys who desperately needs to move abroad at some point in his career, so it has to be the right fit. And I don't know if he's going to find it outside of Dortmund, so signing a contract extension with a nice new salary, presumably, the captain's armband and an exit option starting from 2027 is seemingly a pretty enticing idea for him. So I'm kind of coming around to the idea that he's more likely to extend than I thought.
All right. Thank you for that insight. I'm honestly clueless.
I mean,
what's going to
ultimately,
happen.
I'm also
I don't have a
clueless,
notion
but-
one way or another.
I don't even know if he knows yet. That's the point. Like he recently said he still wants to talk to it about it with his father and his brother, who's also a Bundesliga player for Augsburg. His father is basically his long-term advisor. He also has an agent, obviously, but I think his father is more important. So I'm pretty sure that Schlotterbeck doesn't fully know that yet whether or not he's going to extend at Dortmund. Maybe he's still holding out for other options, at least to have them on the table. So I don't know that anyone can have much more than like an opinionated guess, but here we are.
Yeah. All right. Lars, thank you very much for your opinionated guesses. We'll be back next week after the Atalanta game and see in what shape we'll approach the Leipzig game and the second leg, of course. Lots to discuss there. As always, everyone out there, thank you for listening, and hopefully a happy Friday followed by a nice weekend of watching everyone else lose on the couch. Until then, have a blessed time. Goodbye.